Welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Brandon here with Colton, and today we're going over our AOT versus Kanata Marine gameplay. We recorded this gameplay ahead of time and then wanted to talk over it as the gameplay was going on, and we'll jump right into the gameplay itself.
Trying something a little different here. Tell us what you think. If you want us to keep doing stuff like this, or if you want us to go back to the old way of doing things.
We did speed up gameplay just to try to help encourage the be able to get through the game a little bit quicker. Trying also not to worry too much about decision making, like taking a long time for that, so we can kind of thoroughly go through some of those decisions. I didn't have a power threshold here to be able to step over without slamming climax. And I kind of wanted to keep that hand size going, especially towards mid game where I need a little bit more sustain. So I thought about just the crashing of the lane here would be a little bit more efficient here. If the damage stuck, it would get you closer to 1. So you'd probably swing more back at me anyway. So I wasn't too worried about that decision there.
Probably wouldn't salvage the Roboco there in too many cases, but I definitely opened a whole bunch of those Rickies, as you can tell. So I wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah, no, opening 4 of those immediately, yeah, that's...
If you're going to open 4 of something, it might as well be a 0. At least it was a playable and not, my top end or a CX. So count your blessings, I guess. But I was okay with this board, like having 2 stock and, a couple of 2/5s on board. My second turn at 0, probably about to go to 1. Like, that doesn't feel bad.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was at here. Rickying for the center runner felt a little odd here, but at the same time, I already had 2 of the combo in hand, gear in hand, like, felt pretty confident going into the next turn that I'd have with that third lane playable.
Here I decide to use the Ricky to get a Marine into clock. Mostly because I didn't want to level a Marine, because that was my only red at the time, but I still obviously needed red. And the hope was that I wouldn't have to level the Marine, and I would have some other red that would end up in my clock, which only worked out so well.
Fair. I was kind of in a similar spot up until the Ricky here, where I only have yellow and green in clock. I'm like, I don't really want to clock one of my combo pieces to get red in. But thankfully, the Ricky was able to get that Brainstormer into clock here. I don't actually use the Brainstormer in this game. Didn't get it to hand, and didn't use the resources to go searching for it. But would have been really efficient here with the Brainstormer to try to force the frontal attack anyway that you would have done if you didn't have the climax in hand.
Yeah, I had an extra climax. Figured I might as well slam it. It doesn't hurt to push damage at that point. I have the hand, and I also know that I'm going to probably encore these Mikos. So I'm not super worried about the board situation.
Drawing into the Historia here was actually a really helpful play here to be able to triple combo, because I was able to salvage the level 1 that was in waiting room still.
I'm fully aware that most people don't like top checks. I'm a big fan of top checks. I like this combo. Mostly because you have controllable deck speed. Obviously, like, you canceled quite a bit early in the game, so you didn't get to maybe use that as effectively as you would have liked, but it's still quite nice. And this is the part where I'm trying to decide, okay, do I want to try to just go to 2 and go? Or do I want to hold off for a turn and just build more stock? Ultimately, I decide to go. The challenge here was that I've got 3 of the 2/1s in waiting room, so I know I'm only going to get 1 Kanata if I do.
And here I'm kind of pretty well set either direction, whether you're able to push me into level 2 or keep me at 1. If you don't go into level 2, you can win over 2 lanes here. potentially, assuming you
Yeah.
don't throw down a third level 1 that can step over. With the ability to gear right here, I'm guaranteed to save one of these cards, so it's just a matter of how many of them are you going to be able to step over.
Yeah, I think Old Gear is still quite viable. It's still a good card. I opt to do the Onion Ricky first, and I only get the Bay off of it, which is, I was hoping for more, but it's fine. Again, I'm clocking myself, basically I'm trying to go to 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
So I encore both of these to push myself to 2, knowing that I can clock and then heal off with the Kanata. So, like, I'm basically getting a free plus, essentially. Because I get a heal that I otherwise wouldn't be able to use. So I go up to 2-1, and again, I only have access to 1 Kanata, which is annoying. I try the Roboco, hoping to hit a 2. I don't. But you notice that I do ditch the CX swap because I'm sitting with a copy of each in hand. That becomes a theme.
Fair.
That becomes a theme. So ultimately, I just go get the Brainstorm. Like, it's a mill tool if I need it. Potential plussing if I need it. My compression isn't going to be good, but it's not going to be horrible.
Yeah, when I'm seeing,
At least in theory.
when I see this board, I now recognize that like you're gonna step over everything, which is annoying, but at the same time you're about to push damage here, so the likelihood that I go into 2 is actually pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Because at this point, you're out, what, 2? Did you trigger?
no, I didn't trigger. I'm out 1.
Yeah, so you're 7 out of 29. Like, you're going to cancel some of this, but yeah, you're probably going to go to 2, at least in theory.
Well, if 1 swing for 3 sticks, I'm at 2. So
I get one of the 2 ones, and I also get my swapper. Because I currently have the salvage in hand, and I'm just going to swap into my stock soul next turn. And with 10 cards in deck, I feel like I'm probably going to get another turn in this deck, which would give me an opportunity to, use the Kanatas more effectively. We actually do start sticking some damage.
I do actually search for gear there to be able to get the Armin to hand. I do that immediately off the first swing, also to try to potentially cancel more as that additional search into the deck. I did refresh. I did when I leveled up here. I did get the changer for the Mikasa into waiting room off of that. So I know that I'm able to change both Mikasa and the Armin on this turn. So I can actually win potentially 2 lanes here, assuming you don't have the 2K backups, which Kanata Marine typically I haven't seen a lot of Kanata Marine with the 2K backups.
Right. Yeah, this list is basically Darcy's list, but I subbed in a couple of the bays. And this is where things start to go off the rails.
Yeah, sticking.
I'm planning on keeping the Kanata in the middle because I know that you can't really get power until your stuff's on board for a turn. I thought that was a 2 soul for a second, so I initially took 3 and then we fixed it.
Yep.
So I'm at 2-6, but it's still not so bad. I'm gonna refresh OK because I'm about to combo here. You're gonna get your changes off, so your board is big.
Yep, I can get up to 13 in that lane. Depending on how the attack order goes, I could potentially get the counter into hand if you swing into the other lane first. But
I'm less concerned about board here.
Yeah, 13 is usually big enough to at least pose a problem for you.
Yep.
So I figure the switch here is good enough to be able to make that work. Worst case scenario as well, I can also use the gear to move it to the back row, right? Like if I'm saving a piece, I'm going to be saving the 2 soul character as opposed to the level 1 combo.
So all this felt pretty great. I didn't really account for board size. Like, you have the gear in hand
Yeah.
almost certainly. So I decide not to worry too much about, quote unquote, winning board and more just get my combo off. I decide not to take that bay as the fourth card. Instead, I decide to take the backup just in case. At that point, I'm just looking for cards to ditch. But I'm going to refresh 6 out of 24. I feel good about my life. And then I feel slightly less good about my life.
Fair. I do use gear here, in part because I'm going to win board in that lane anyway.
Yeah.
And because of that, I can save 2 characters instead of just 1.
Yep. And then I feel really bad about my life. Because now I'm out 3. I have a 4th in hand because I drew it. Because remember, that was the one that was going to cancel, but then I draw it.
Yep.
I didn't have any way to get rid of it. So now I'm 4 out of 21. And I'm thinking, okay, I just need to not eat a vanilla 8.
Fair. Yeah, and then...
Should I spoil it for them, or will they just see what happens here in about 30 seconds?
They're going to see it about 30 seconds. I was debating combo... I mean, I'm going to combo here, but just debating which lane is going to put it in. Whether or not... Because right now, you could actually tie with backup. And... As much as, like, getting rid of Kanata is nice and all...
Mm-hmm.
If you do triple cancel on me, which is a thing that can happen... I don't necessarily want you like healing back down again with Kanata even more and getting some decent compression into the next deck. So that was the decision that was being made there, was trying to figure out how much of that to...
Yeah, don't mind me just not recognizing that you're comboing and not swinging for damage.
Yeah.
And then you stick 4.
Right? So... aside from sticking damage there at the top, seeing the different kinds of movements with the old change package still being effective to be able to help keep board in some lanes. Gear still being able to get that memory counter to hand. A lot of stuff that we saw with the old stuff, but the combo with the salvage and with the choice helped keep cards in hand a little bit more. I didn't really trigger climaxes there either. So I wasn't building additional resources off the triggers themselves, but the combo to be able to mill through my deck, especially there at the end, definitely has been a piece to be able to help make sure I get the right refreshes at the right times.
Mill combos are good. I'm insistent. Mill combos are still good. Yeah, basically, this list is basically Fate with a more robust early play package. So like it's got some stuff for sure. Old gear is better than new gear. Like, I don't know why anybody would be playing new gear when old gear is still a card that you can play legally in this set.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that there's not a lot of tools to be able to grab gear with this list. We do have the Cheery that can grab the gear, and you also have the Armin that when it's come to stage, that you can get gear off of that as well. But outside of those 2 ways, you're more or less looking to draw into gear.
Mm-hmm. But it's still such a powerful card.
Oh, yeah.
These other 1-0 events that contemporary decks run are just, they're usually like they're fine, like they're not bad, but this is like, it's still really good. It was really good when people played it, and even though you don't have the Aaron combo that gets it, it's still so good when you have it in hand.
Mm-hmm. I run it as a 3 of. There are arguments that can be made to put that as a 4 of, just because of how impactful that game can be. Notice that I very rarely filled my board. I don't think I actually filled my board by all 5 slots that entire game for that very reason, to be able to use gear to be able to continue to gain the advantage that way.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like AOT has a bunch of back row pieces that it's trying to have on board all the time either. Like at the end, you're looking at the 3/2 Armin.
Yeah.
Armin.
Yeah, the 3/2 Armin.
So like that's your back row, and that's kind of it. You aren't really trying necessarily to get other back row pieces down. So throughout the mid game, you don't really have any reason not to run the gear, I don't think.
I think if you're trying, there's arguments to be made that you could actually fill out of the back row slot for other additional support. There's support to be able to help get additional stock. For example, this build is really designed to incorporate that gear into place. So that's why I don't fill the full board. But you could build the deck in a way that plays a little bit more board based. That is also a way to be able to get additional stock to pay
Sure.
for some of the more expensive top ends.
And it also it does the fate thing, right? Where the level 1 combo that, either mills for, or at least mills does something, like you try to recur it over and over again, and you have some way to save it. Like in the fate list, it's usually the Encore Shiro or something like that.
Yeah.
But in this list, it's gear. You're trying to save one of those guys so that you can hopefully recur that combo if you draw into another CX, or if you have two of them, or swap into it. Obviously, running Salvage Choice, you're not going to just hit extra CXs into hand as often, but still the possibility of recurring that combo is another thing that puts gear over the top.
Well, Armin be able to grab climaxes is a huge thing too.
Yeah.
So as much as you don't have true climax assurance, Armin being able to grab a climax for the next turn is also pretty helpful too.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's it for us. We will be back on Tuesday with a Clock Talk. Following Thursday, we'll have 5 cards, 5 minutes for Saikano?
Bunny Girl.
Bunny Girl. We have Bunny Girl coming up next, so we'll do that a week from today. And then the following Tuesday, Brandon will have a deck tech. We'll have more gameplay in 2 weeks. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.